continuing my occasional video series called the Stephen King Short Fiction Project. This is the third video that I've done so far in this series. It began with You Like It Darker. I recently did one on Night Shift, and today I'm going to talk about different seasons. So this is the third one that I'll be doing in this kind of format. I am going to change up the format just a little bit for this video, however. All of these videos I start with just an overview of what the collection is, and then the middle section I talk about each story very quickly, like 2 or 3 sentences, and then the last section is my kind of overall assessment of the short story collection, what my favorites are within, and so forth. Well, because this is a collection that only has 4 stories, I'm going to expand that middle section just a little bit and talk about each novella just a little bit more completely. So, just the overview. Different Seasons was published in 1982, and I'm not sure if this is a first edition or not. The information on the copyright page is a little unclear, but I suspect it might be, even if it's not a first printing. But this edition, published by Viking, is 527 pages. And there are 4 novellas in this collection, and they range from 66 pages to 196 pages. And this is a book that a lot of people recommend as maybe a great starting point for Stephen King. And I would not disagree, and I'll give you my final assessment, what I think about that at the very end. So within there are 4 novellas, and they are kind of thematically linked, different seasons. Each title of each novella has kind of a subtitle that has a season in the title. So it kind of connects that way, but there are also some pretty cool Easter eggs that connect some of the stories. They're very minor, they're not really important, so if you only wanted to read one of these novellas or 2 of these novellas, it wouldn't matter. But there are cool little Easter eggs, if you're paying attention, that do link these stories. The first novella in the collection is Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, with the subtitle Hope Springs Eternal. Yes, this was made into that very, very fine film adaptation by, I think it was Frank Darabont, called The Shawshank Redemption. And knowing that adaptation, because I first read this 30 years ago when there wasn't an adaptation, but reading it after knowing the movie, the thing that struck me most is how much of the most memorable lines from that movie are drawn 100% from the novella. This was not a case of, not to go off on a little rant, but this was not a case of an arrogant Hollywood filmmaker and screenwriter thinking they could outdo Stephen King. So much of this is lifted exactly from the page. So if you've seen the adaptation, I think the story will add a little bit even more to it because of the depth of character that you get. But I do love that adaptation, and this novella is fantastic. If you're not familiar with either, it is about a prison break. You get the story told from a character named Red. In the movie, he's portrayed by Morgan Freeman. In the book, he's Red because he's actually Irish and has red hair and gray hair by the end. But Red tells this story, and he tells the story of a man named Andy Dufresne, who's a fellow prisoner at Shawshank Prison. And it's a long tale, and the story is about their friendship. Their story is about, as the subtitle says, Hope Springs Eternal. It is about hope. And it's truly one of the most beautiful things that King has written. I would put this in, if I were to put a subcategory on this, I would say that this is a work of literary fiction. It is a fantastic novella. It's a somewhat quick read. It's only about 100 pages, and highly recommend that novella within Different Seasons. The second novella is called Apt Pupil, and it has the subtitle Summer of Corruption. Now, this has an adaptation, and I think I saw it a long time ago, but I don't really remember it, so I don't know if it's a very good adaptation, but it's a very good novella. This is a really dark story. I was talking on the Discord with Jake from The Bookish Drummer, and he said he thought this could have been expanded and turned into a Bachman book. That's how dark it is, and I agree with him 100%. I had forgotten how dark this story was. This is told from the perspective of like a 13-year-old kid at the beginning. He discovers something really nefarious about one of his neighbors and finds out what a horrible person he is. But he starts visiting this person, and the title tells you a little bit about it, Apt Pupil, but I don't want to go any further because I don't want to spoil anything. This is the longest novella in this collection at 200 pages. But it is riveting from beginning to end, and there are so many times where my jaw was just on the floor with the direction that King took the story, oftentimes in a very, very dark place. So, Apt Pupil is fantastic. If there's one complaint that I have about Apt Pupil, I felt that the ending was just a little bit rushed, but overall just another strong novella in this collection. The third novella is called The Body, with a subtitle Fall from Innocence. And this was a really great adaptation as well. It wasn't called The Body, it was called Stand By Me, so another one that had a great adaptation. This showcases something that King does so well in his entire career, and that is write adolescence. This story, we have four boys that are on kind of a journey, and their journey is to see a dead body. They hear about this kid who had been missing, and they hear someone had seen his body where it is, and they go out to try to be heroes, to find the body and turn in the body and maybe be heroes. And it's their journey of traveling through the woods, and it's so remarkable how well King writes children. The contradictions they have, that's something that I see very clearly, having been a teacher for 26 years, from junior high to high school kids. It's very easy to see when an author doesn't know how to write children, because they forget about the contradictions that are kids. How they can be just incredibly mature one moment, and then a bucket of tears the next moment, and then insensitive idiots the next moment. And he shows you all of this, and he has four very, very distinct characters in here in this journey to find this dead body. The ending, another one that maybe not one of King's best endings, but the journey is certainly worth it. The ending of the book was slightly different than the novella. Sorry, the novella is slightly different than the movie, but overall, I just love this story. It gave me a lot of nostalgic vibes. There were times I was thinking back to my childhood, and that's something, again, King just does this so well. He lets you connect with these young protagonists in such a fundamental way, and this is one of his best novellas at displaying that talent that he has always had as an author. The final novella is called The Breathing Method, and the subtitle is A Winter's Tale. And The Breathing Method, to my knowledge, is the only one that doesn't have an adaptation from this collection. But I think it should. I really enjoyed it. It's a frame narrative where the first and third acts are taking place in kind of this club. This being a club where you just envision like old men sit around, smoke stogies, drink scotch, surrounded by wood paneling and books, that kind of thing. And the middle section is a story that one of the men tells that is about the breathing method. And it's about him as a doctor and one of his patients. And this is the one that has both magical realism and horror vibes, and reminds you in this collection, oh yeah, Stephen King. Apt Pupil, you could say some of that has some horror elements, but Breathing Method, it's full-on horror at one point. There are deep magical realism themes within the club itself that I really enjoyed. This one surprised me because it's the one that I remembered the least from when I first read this about 30 years ago. So I went in kind of blind, not remembering anything from it, so I was extremely impressed with it. I enjoyed the framed story within. I loved just what this club was all about. I'd love for King to kind of revisit this place, because I think there's a lot of potential to stories that he could tell within this club, but Breathing Method was a home run as well. So this collection is very, very strong. This may be King's finest collection. I mentioned that with Night Shift. I think this is a cut above because I don't think there are any bad stories in here. Night Shift, there weren't many. There were maybe 2 out of the 20 short stories there, but all 4 novellas in different seasons are home runs in my mind. If I had to just say which are definitively favorites, I'd probably say all 3 except for Apt Pupil. Maybe just because I felt the ending was a little rushed. The other 3 are definitely going to be on that short list when I get through all of these videos and I talk about my favorites of all time of Stephen King's short fiction. So, different seasons, highly recommend it. I've seen people recommend it, and I've recommended it as a great entry point into this author, and rereading it has just affirmed that for me, that not only is this a great novella collection, maybe his greatest short fiction collection, I think it's one of his greatest books. So if you've read different seasons, I'd love to talk with you in the comments section below. My apologies for the HVAC turning on in the middle. It's like 20 degrees in Texas today, and I wasn't going to turn that off. It's cold here, hence the hoodie. But if you did enjoy different seasons, or if you didn't, I'd love to talk with you in the comments section below. And you can look for my next one in this series. It's going to be on Skeleton Crew. 3 or 4 months from now. I alternate Stephen King short fiction collections with other short fiction collections, so I have some Henry James up next, and then Stephen King will be back in the queue with Skeleton Crew. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter, Goodreads, and the Fireside Discord. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.